surrounded by a bunch of stunads. A bunch of drools. A bunch of drools.
Hey, get the sauce.
Hey, happy Thursday to everyone. And especially happy Thursday to those of you who decided to tail my 2 MLB bets yesterday. It was 0-2, and I think it would have been way off on both. Actually, I thought the Braves were coming back and winning that whole time. So I wouldn't say I was way off with the Braves. They lost by 1. But Astros team total over. Where the hell's the offense? I had over 4.5. They couldn't.
That was bad.
That was bad indeed. So obviously, we've got a big one on deck here. Toast, later tonight we'll record. How many games are on tomorrow?
Like 3 or 4. I'm pretty sure.
Andy's saying 0.
Or sorry, yes, it's the next day. I'm sorry.
So there's no baseball tomorrow?
No, they would be all on Saturday, but they start early, so we would do the same thing on Friday night.
So yeah, we'll record tomorrow night, then we'll record. Okay. So obviously we got one baseball game. It comes down to the story of Grimace, and does it have a happy ending? Does it end tonight? Judging by the comments on the video we uploaded, I would say most of the viewers are anti-Grimace, a part of the anti-Grimace movement. They're not believers. Actually, as I'm saying that, we're polling at over 60% Grimace, 30% Brewers. So the people watching right now are on the Brewers, but the people commenting on the video were anti-Grimace. It was hate speech, actually. It was very...
They were like, oh, Toast, he's so cold. Fade him. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys?
That's the sports betting industry. You could win 6 days in a row, lose once. This guy's cold as shit. All right.
Put him on ice.
So you are going Grimace, correct?
100%. Not even really a question for me. Again, I can reiterate the fact that this Brewers team, especially offensively, doesn't scare me right now. Again, yesterday and the day before that, or Tuesday and Wednesday, they scored 5 and 4. But again, it's just the way that they score those runs. Again, if Jackson Chourio comes out and hits 2 home runs again today, then I'll take my L. But I still feel like that the Mets and the Brewers, at least as far as offensively, are a wash. I actually lean the Mets offensively, but I will give you that the Brewers are at home. They've played so much better at home this year. But actually, with having some losses in the last month or so, their home record isn't as great as you would think it was. And honestly, as far as the starting pitching goes, has Tobias Myers been really good? Yeah, he has been. Again, I talked about it a little bit last night as well. Some of those teams that he's faced, really not impressive over his last 6 or 7 starts. San Francisco, Cincinnati, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Arizona twice, and then obviously the Mets as well. So he did pitch well against the Mets. I will give you that the Mets haven't been hitting on the road as much, but at the same time, this is playoff baseball, and that from what I've seen the first couple of games, I have no worries that the Mets can be able to at least scrape a couple across. And then as far as Quintana goes with the Mets, his last 7 road starts have been pretty damn impeccable. 2.75 ERA, 1.17 WHIP. And the Brewers versus left-handed pitching at home or on the road, it hasn't really mattered. The Brewers at home over the last 30 days, 29th in WRC plus, OPS, and WOBA over the last 14 days. It only goes to 24th, 23rd. And against left-handed pitching, they've struggled for a while now. They were kind of hot at the beginning of the season versus left-handed pitching, and then they kind of just fell out of it. And over the last 14 days, they're 19th, 21st, and 20th in WRC plus, OPS, and WOBA. So does Quintana struggle a little bit with lefty bats? Yeah, but with righty bats, yeah. But at the same time, this Brewers offense really just doesn't scare me right now. So I actually think that both pitchers can pitch well. I'm not trying to make a case that I did bet the Mets, and I also played the first 5 under 4.5 because, again, I think that Tobias Myers is good enough to get through. I don't think he's going to go full 5. I think you're going to see 3 or 4 innings from Tobias Myers, and then however their matchup base goes, depending on what they do. But again, you have Piamps that's worked, a middle reliever that's worked back-to-back days. Mets saw Joe Ross, they saw McGill, they saw Williams, they saw Cohen yesterday, they saw Mears and Ashby and Piamps the day before that. So literally, the Mets have seen every single arm in the Milwaukee bullpen. They're all rested, they're ready to go. Nobody's on 3 or 4 days or anything crazy like that. And as far as the Mets bullpen goes, I don't feel like Milwaukee has such an advantage. Yes, Maton and Stanek are going to be down, but you're still, for me, as long as I have Diaz, Budo, Garrett, and a combination of the Rain Man or Ottavino, I'm good with that. Because I do think that Quintana can probably get through 5, maybe 6 innings here today. Because again, I do think this game stays close. So I do think it's a little bit of a coin flip, but I do think that the Mets hold the advantage with the bats. And again, I'm probably going to get a pushback on it, but as far as if you combine the starting pitching and bullpen, I'd still lean Mets there just because of the usage and how hot the Mets have been. So I did play the Mets on the money line, and I played the Mets for our first 5 under 4.5 as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the playoffs. Some teams have the magic, and some teams don't. And you look at this Brewers team, and it's not much magic there. I'm not seeing it. UCAPper's in the comments. What's up, man? You got NBA coming up. You got to let me know when you're coming on and talk some basketball.
I did lose a little bit of CLV. I'll be honest with you guys. I bet the Mets last night.
Yeah, moved the other way.
Yeah, I think it was going down. I mean, it's 5-8 cents. It's nothing crazy, but I just want to let everybody know that just for transparency reasons.
So someone say, I'm from Milwaukee. The Brewers are free. I'm sorry that Grimace has to do this to you in front of your home fans. There's some Brewers support in the comments. Helms was pissed that you said you don't trust the Brewers offensively. That triggered him that you said that. I guess he loves the Brewers offense apparently. He said, bro, you're just saying that because you got a future Grimace pick. Obviously, yeah, I have a Mets World Series ticket, but also, I mean, this Mets team continues to defy the odds. I mean, that game 1 in Milwaukee, they were supposed to lose that game, playing a doubleheader, flying to Milwaukee against a Brewers team that had a day off. The Mets had no bullpen availability, smacked them around. Mets are winning this. Yes, I'm a Mets fan, and we've come this far. I'm going down with the ship if the ship is going down. So, yeah, Mets.
I will also say Kyle's a Met fan, but he is very even-keeled with that. Like, as far as if he doesn't think the Mets are going to win, he'll let us know. Like, there's no question about that. So, to be honest, I'm happy that he's on this side because every time Kyle says, I don't like that Mets bet, it usually loses. I will give him that credit. So,
yeah, I have no problem fading my favorite team if the Shipley just sent in the super chat. Framber Valdez sucks. He spent $4.99 to say that.
Hard not to agree.
All right. So
what'd you say, Beaver?
Hard not to agree.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of Framber hate. So let's get into the NFL.
Yeah.
Toast. Talk to you later, man.
Have a good night, guys.
Oh, I almost said good night to the entire program.
It's
next game there. Jeez.
All right. Next up, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Thursday night football. I actually don't even know where Prop Beaver leans. Do you want to put your own name up on the thing?
Yeah, I could do that. I mean, God forbid. I mean, what do I have, 5 hands? That was a 2-second process there. Let's relax a second.
All right, we got the Bucs on the road in Atlanta here Thursday night. Market seems to be a little bit against me, I guess, because it's when I placed my bet, I grabbed one of the only 43.5s available. Now it's since moved down a half point. I mean, nothing. Who cares? It's a half point. But looks like the total is 43.5 across the board. I think it goes over the total. If you told me last year that we would be looking at a Week 5 game, Bucs on the road in Atlanta, and expecting the Bucs to run the ball a little bit, we would have laughed collectively because the Bucs had one of the worst rushing attacks in the league last year, and the Falcons were a top 5 run defense. But that's not really what's going on this year. Now that Bucky Irving's getting some touches, and I don't want to put the whole thing on Bucky Irving getting some touches, but it certainly has something to do with it. The Bucs have a little bit of a run game brewing, and the Falcons, now that remember they lost their defensive coordinator, Nielsen. He's with Jacksonville now. Run defense doesn't quite look the same as it did last year. So I think the run game's going to be there for Tampa Bay. But Harrison, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, wow, thank you.
So that's on top of also liking the matchup for Baker Mayfield, by the way. The Falcons pass rush isn't anything that scares me. I like Baker Mayfield to be able to piece up Atlanta. I wanted to get to the Bucs. I still like the Bucs, even though it moved back from 1.5 to 2.5. But I feel the over 43.5 is the safer bet for me because I do think Kirk Cousins can make some plays. I know Prop Beaver kind of disagrees with me here. My opinion on Kirk Cousins this year, based on the limited action we've seen in Atlanta, if he has time to plant and throw in the pocket, he will make the throws. Yes, his arm strength isn't great. Yes, he's coming off an Achilles injury and he's getting up there in age. So if there's any sort of commotion around him, don't really trust Kirk Cousins. But if you're going to give him a pocket to throw from, I still trust Kirk Cousins to make the throws. Tampa Bay doesn't have much of a pass rush. And on top of that, Falcons are getting their right tackle back. What, McGarry? It's McGarry, right?
Yeah, Caleb McGarry.
Caleb McGarry. Yeah. So Falcons are getting their right tackle back who's been hurt. So this Falcons pass protection should get an upgrade at home against a pass rush that isn't very good. A pass rush that's also missing Cansey. So the Bucs defensive front isn't 100% healthy. I expect the Falcons to be able to give Kirk Cousins time to throw enough so where he's able to make some plays. But in reality, what I like more for the Falcons offense is the run game. The Bucs run defense is bad. Now, Vita Vea has been taken off the injury report, which helps. Vita Vea is going to be out there. Also, Logan Hall, another one of their defensive linemen. They took him off the injury report too. He's going to be out there. So some of the injury question marks we have with the Bucs defense aren't questions anymore. I believe the only two pieces they're missing, Cansey and Antoine Winfield Jr. But regardless, this Bucs run defense doesn't look like a typical Todd Bowles defense. They're struggling against the run. And the Falcons, they're inconsistent, but between Tyler Algier and obviously Bijan Robinson, they do have a run game, and I expect the run blocking to be even better with McGarry. The offensive line has been creating space, so I expect the Falcons to be able to run the ball. I expect Kirk Cousins to have time in the pocket. I do like the matchup for the Bucs offense slightly better, so catching points, I would lean towards the Tampa Bay side, but I figured cut my losses rather than try to play truth or dare here with the two sides. I like the matchup for both offenses. I'll just take the over. Now, the reason that we got such a low total here is these two teams do run slow paces. Neither of these teams are rushing up to the line of scrimmage to snap the ball, which is a killer for the over. 43.5 is a decently low number, and these two teams have gone over 14 of their last 16 matchups. So I'm not a trends person, but if you're a trends person, if you've been blindly betting overs in Bucs Falcons game, you're 14-2 in your last 16. So give me the over.
Yeah. So somebody said that the Bucs had 6 sacks last week. LOL. In response to you saying that the Bucs don't have much of a pass rush.
Who cares?
Look at the previous weeks. 1 sack, and 0 sacks. No, actually,
hold on. I want to respond to that. When you're looking at pass rush numbers, I really don't care how many sacks they had. I'm looking at how many pressures they generated. I mean, if they grabbed 6 sacks but only generated 6 pressures, it's never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Well, I do care about both. I mean, sacks are
no, they're huge. But I'm saying if that's how you measure a pass rush is sacks, you're not going to get the most accurate indication. You want to know. It's not just about sacking the quarterback. It's also about altering the quarterback's progression and what he's able to do. You know what it's kind of like? Perfect comparison. NBA. Everyone looks at blocked shots, right? Man, you know what's way more valuable than a blocked shot? An altered shot that misses because your team usually gets the rebound, like Rudy Gobert. He alters every single whatever. Sorry, go.
Yeah. So, in this one, at first I was leaning with the Bucs in the over, kind of with you. And then I'm a man who doesn't like the boosts. I'm not a boost guy. Some people like the boosts. I don't like when the boosts are boosting my shit. Okay, and every boost that I was seeing is like Baker Mayfield to throw 200 plus, boosted to 100 plus. I saw another book with Baker Mayfield to throw 225 plus yards. And Kirk to third 225 plus yards boosted, and then Bucs money line boosted. So I don't really know what's good with that. I didn't really like this game to begin with anyway, so I'm just gonna decide to keep rolling with what's working for me right now. The defensive props are hot, and Jordan Whitehead is a guy who I think is a bit undervalued in this one. Only over 35% of games since 2021, 2-2 to the number this season, averaging 7.8. And it's not a shock we're catching plus money with Whitehead at this number, but I feel it's a bit undeserved here. Since 2021, at home, he's over just 3 of 21 games, averaging 5.2 tackles and assists. But this is a man who is a goddamn road warrior. He's over his last 13 of 21 road games, averaging 6.8 tackles and assists. And he has 6 straight road catches, hitting 8, nevertheless 7 in all of them. On top of that, for some weird reason, he is excellent in this split against the NFC on the road, in particular, headed back to 2021. Over his last 7 to 8, averaging 8.4. And this was a really solid matchup for Whitehead. My source for this info, PFF Macri, he hasn't tweeted the Week 4 rankings yet, but the Falcons were allowing the second most tackles per game to the safety position headed into Week 4. And we've seen 3 opposing safeties catch this number in 4 weeks versus Atlanta. The lone week they didn't was last week, and Atlanta ran the ball just 15 times. I really think that's because McGarry wasn't on the field. We're going to see him back on the field this week. The Bucs' glaring weakness thus far has been that rush defense, adding the added boost of Atlanta potentially having a late game lead, with the boost telling us that they should, and the majority of Whitehead snaps coming in the box. And for light half unit play, I think this is worth a look. Really don't like this game, but I want something to bet on while I watch it, so this is it. Honestly, I was considering betting Christian Azine as well, but I didn't want to double up on safety, so just betting Whitehead here due to his insane road splits.
Someone said primetime unders have been smacking. Monday night, they both went over. The Monday night before that went over. The primetime totals are 4-4 in the last 8 primetime games. So I don't know how the unders have been smacking. That's a trend that was about midway through last season. But all right, let's move on to some college football. Poll is on the Bucs, by the way, over 50% polling towards Tampa Bay. So the viewership likes the Bucs.
Did you send the invite to Mr. BLT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I did. Just checked. All right, we got we're gonna go through 5 college football games. I think we're gonna start with the 2 that are actually on tonight. And then I think Brad actually is coming on to talk about the other games more, and so I don't think he's really worried about coming on to talk about Texas State Troy. So we can go ahead and start with that one, and then when Brad makes it. All right. So Texas State Troy is the first one. Sun Belt battle. Now, someone in the comments told me that Texas State has never beaten Troy. I have no idea if that's even true. These 2 teams are so much different. This Texas State team, this is the most hyped up Texas State roster that they've had in maybe ever. They were one of the favorites to win the conference, and this is a Troy team that lost everybody. Keep in mind, the coaching staff is gone. They only brought 4 returning starters back on both sides of the ball. 2 on defense, 2 on offense. So this Troy team from last year is gutted. So there's a reason Texas State's laying such a big number on the road here, because the current state of these 2 programs couldn't be more opposite. So the fact that Troy has dominated Texas State in years past, I don't really know how relevant that is. Texas State is head and shoulders better than Troy. They're laying 2 touchdowns on the road. Look, I'm not going to pretend to know a bunch about do we have any updates on the Troy quarterback situation?
The game, Goose Crowder's a game time decision. That's the latest update, which means we won't know until he walks out.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to have an answer on that until they take the first snap and walk out of the tunnel. Whether or not Goose Crowder or the other kid, Kilcrease, are going to be playing quarterback for Troy tonight. We could see anywhere from the starter to the 3rd string at quarterback for Troy. So my pick for this game would be Texas State minus 13.5. They've lost a couple heartbreakers. I think the team's a little bit better than their record indicates. So I in my opinion, on paper, Troy should do whatever they want in this game. Texas State should do whatever they want in this game. I'm not betting this one because, like I said, I don't really know what's going on with Troy. I mean, they might trot out their starting quarterback and or they might throw out their 3rd string quarterback who was playing at Gardner Webb last year. So I really don't know. The Troy offense is kind of a mystery to me. So I would go Texas State or I'm just going to pass.
Yeah. I know Troy's been a disappointment this year. That was probably expected with the huge turnover. This is Texas State's first Sun Belt game of the year. Their offense isn't a problem. It's their defense. They were giving up 27 to Lamar, 31 to Arizona State, forwarded to Houston, Sam Houston, but yeah, I mean, Troy's just like kind of like a disaster. That Louisiana Monroe game set football back about 20 years. And I mean, this team won the Sun Belt the last few years. This year, there's no way. This team's completely different. I mean, we saw McLeod from James Madison. He could still do it all season. I mean, like you just said it, Troy's battling 2 hurt quarterbacks in Crowder and Gilcrease. They may be up to their 3rd quarterback in Caldwell. And, even though Texas State's defense isn't great, I have a hard time seeing Troy doing really anything, especially if they're down to their 3rd QB. So, I mean, Texas State's defense isn't good, but they attack a lot. They have 15 sacks on the season. I think this team should absolutely roll. They're averaging 451 yards a game. And really, Troy isn't doing much on either side of the ball. So, yeah, I'm on Texas State. That being said, college football has been extremely weird, so I wouldn't be surprised if Troy wins by 45 here.
Right? Brad, you have anything to add for this one?
No. Just with the quarterback question marks, I did take Troy under 21.5. Excuse me. Woo! I did take Troy under 21.5 points. It's tough because like you guys have mentioned, this Texas State defense is not very good. 83rd in net points per drive is not good.
Yeah, but if Goose Crowder doesn't play, I think they stay way under 21.5. I mean, Texas State did hold UTSA to 10. So I think the Texas State defense might be a little better than some of these games have looked, but yeah, like like you said, with the quarterback question mark makes it tough to actually put any money down. Andy, I'm guessing you're kind of feeling the same way we are.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. The one thing that Detroit's done pretty well the last 2 games, they've had 6.4 yards per carry. Obviously, that was against Florida A&M. But then they had 4.6 against Louisiana Monroe. And you look at that, and like that's a pretty solid game. They scored 9 points. I mean, that you have to get it done. You have to score more than that. But that's actually the one thing that up until last week, Texas State was doing well. They gave up 5.5 yards per carry last week, but before that, the most they had given up is 2.7. So they've been a good run defense. And with quarterback question marks, that's probably what Troy's going to have to lean on. So I think that kind of, it feels like a trap there, set exactly where Texas State wants. So yeah, I think Texas State should roll in this one. But again, college football has been really weird this year.
Now let's go to the next one. And speaking of weird, can we talk minor football? I did bet this game. I got UTEP plus the points. Cade's back. For those of you that were watching the show and following along with college football last year, you know who Cade McConnell is. He's the guy that cooked all of us in that FIU game. What happened was, UTEP started the season. Their main quarterback got hurt. It was either like on the first drive or right before the opener. So they lost their main, Gavin Hardison was his name. They lost Gavin Hardison right when the season started. So they were rocking with their backup quarterback. Right before the FIU game, he gets hurt, and then the 3rd stringer comes in and gets hurt in the same game. So entering the FIU game, it was like, oh, UTEP's going to roll in here with their 4th string quarterback. So we all bet FIU, and Gavin Hardison threw for 200 yards and 2 bomb touchdowns in the first quarter. He was airing it the hell out. And honestly, he ended up being the starter for the rest of the season, and Utah had somewhat of a passing offense at times. Look, it was UTEP with a 4th string quarterback. It wasn't anything crazy, but he was formidable. And this is what I like. So you got UTEP during the offseason. The other kid, Locklear, won the starting job over McConnell. Didn't look good. Struggle. I mean, UTEP's really had a disappointing start to the season. No question. Last week at halftime, UTEP has 3 points on the board. They make the quarterback switch, put in McConnell. He drives down the field and scores twice on the road at Colorado State, which is a program that should beat them by more than a touchdown. On the road against a Mountain West program. He drives down the field, scores twice, makes it a 1-score game in the 4th quarter. So he ended up throwing for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half alone on the road at Colorado State. UTEP's going to get an energy boost. They're coming off a bye week. They got their guy back, the guy that was their quarterback last year. How many times have we seen that in football where a team looks one way, they make a quarterback change, and it's not really explainable, but all of a sudden it seems like everyone starts playing better, and the whole momentum shifts for the team. I think UTEP's going to play. We're going to see their best fastball tonight, and we got Sam Houston State going on the road where, look, they opened up the season with 2 road games, couldn't really move the ball much. I mean, they were averaging just 3.3 yards per carry. In the Rice game, they connected on some deep balls, but they haven't had a passing offense since that game. So I think we can catch Sam Houston a little flat coming off the miracle win. UTEP coming off a bye, we're going to see their best fastball. I think they play him tough. So I took the points with UTEP. Anyone?
I'll go. I'm with you. I'm kind of buying in on the weirdness of college football with this one. This one feels like it's going to be just the stupidest football game. Like you just said, he's the quarterback coming in. He's more on the level of a. I mean, I'm not saying he's as good as them, but KJ Jefferson and Jordan McLeod, they're the 2 quarterbacks that have had success on Sam Houston this year. I'd put him closer to those guys than putting him to the New Mexico State quarterback, the Rice quarterback who's EJ Warner, who's been awful this year. So, like, if I'm doing a Venn diagram and I'm putting where he'd be closer to those guys that have had success. So I think, yeah, he'll be successful in this game. And another thing is the UTEP O-line's kind of been the only even semblance of goodness this team's had. They've had a really good pass blocking unit, and Sam Houston's not creating any pressure. I mean, Cade McConnell's really good when he's kept clean. He's awful when he's pressured. If he's not going to be pressured, then he's going to be able to step back and throw the ball, and I think that's going to help. So, yeah, I think UTEP will keep it close. I've been a Sam Houston guy pretty much the whole time besides week 1. Me and Scoop are all over them in our season preview, and we've been right so far. But, yeah, this is a UTEP home game. New quarterback. I think there's a lot of energy there. I think it'll be very close.
Brad, are you with us? Minor Nation? You're muted.
He doesn't know he's muted.
Muted.
Brad, you're muted.
He can't hear us.
Brad.
Muted.
I'm muted.
Now you're back.
You know what's funny is like this headphone I have, I switched headphones and it like, I feel like I'm picking myself up more. It's like, I hear you guys in the back. I thought you guys were like, yeah, go Brad. I'm like, holy shit, I'm laying it down.
No, we were like, bro, you're muted.
No, what I was saying was improved quarterback play can only make this team better, right? Obviously an 0-4 team, but if you just like look at their numbers, like 100 and let's go with EPA, 110th in EPA drop pack, 126 net points per drive on offense. You can't throw the ball, you can't have success, right? It doesn't matter how much you run the ball. Without efficiency in one of those 2 categories, you're not going to be good. You're not going to have success. I think this is going to give them a big boost. You see it all the time, right? We'll use an NFL close example here. The Carolina Panthers, right? They're not a good football team, but they bring in Andy Dalton when they played against the Raiders, and you would have thought they were about to win the Super Bowl. My man threw for 250 yards in the first half, right? Like, you just get that kind of morale boost, team boost. It makes you better, whether it's just temporary or it lasts the whole season. I feel like this is one of those times you kind of want to capitalize on it.
Absolutely, and I also like how it's their guy from last year. So it's not like a new guy that that's their quarterback from last year, a guy that they won a couple games. They beat this Sam Houston team with Cade McConnell at quarterback last year. So, Scoop, are you backing your Bearcats?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Sam Houston. I'm gonna be the contrarian. This is the team Texas State lost to. Kind of the same situation. I said this team would be good this year, especially offensively. It's not my fault. Kyle's a Sam Houston hater. No respect for dual threat Hunter Watson. But really,
hold on. We didn't even know Hunter Watson was going to be the quarterback.
We thought it was to be Jace Bauer.
I know. No, but really, him throwing, he makes some dumb mistakes. But he is their rushing leader. He's great on the ground. On the other side, a team I was high on, UTEP. It's been rough. I don't think their defense has been too bad. In terms of some points given up, but this offense has only scored 24 in their highest output, and that was against Southern Utah, an FCS team.
And they lost.
I know Locklear wasn't really the answer. I know Cade McConnell's won his job back. I actually like Cade McConnell. I think they'll be in some trouble even with Sam Houston's defense. Sam Houston's ground game should get going. Not only Watson, McKinney and Ducker have over 200 yards, and UTEP's given up the most rushing yards in the conference so far. So. Sam Houston's pass defense hasn't been that bad. Also, their rush defense has been iffy. So, if UTEP really can't do anything on the ground like they haven't been, it's going to be all up to Cade McConnell. So, I'm going to lay the points minus 10.
Oh, you're on a Sam Houston Island. All right, so the next game, I'm just going to be a listener here. I know for a fact that Andy, labeled as Fillmore on the screen,
I just realized that too. That's awesome.
Before he even starts talking, I already know he's about to give you some riveting speech about how Billy Napier's the worst football person to ever coach a college football game, and how UCF is going to come into the swamp and beat the shit out of Florida. That's what he's about to say. And I'm not saying he's wrong. Just know before he starts talking that he's a Georgia fan and he hates anything.
I'm an SEC hater. Yeah, he hates everyone in the SEC.
So go ahead, spew your bullshit.
So yeah, I think UCF's going to run all over them. This isn't about necessarily the coaching or anything like that. It's not about that. I hate backing KJ Jefferson. Everybody knows how I feel about him. But this is actually a spot he won at Arkansas last year. He went into the swamp and won. Obviously different situation, but he's going in there probably with a better team now. They were running the ball like crazy. They're the number one rushing offense in the country. It didn't help them when they were getting blown out by Colorado, but they had to throw the ball a ton. I mean, he had 35 pass attempts in that game. That's just not how UCF plays. If they're down, they're probably going to struggle a lot. But I think they're going to be able to set the tone here. This is a Florida defense who against Texas A&M got ran all over. They've not been a good run defense. And you're now facing the best. I mean, this is a team that runs a fast pace. They run the ball like crazy. So yeah, that just sets up perfect to me. I know it's square as hell. Everyone's on it. It opened up at 1 point. Now it's already at 2.5. But I'm going with it because I think this Florida team is obviously broken. That program's broken. They're not very good. And UCF needs to bounce back bad because they got their asses kicked by Coach Prime last week, and they were kind of seeing their season slip away now, and they have to save it. And I think it's a perfect situation for them to do it.
Brad?
Yeah, I'm going to be at this game. I'm actually really excited.
Oh, shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, super excited.
Wait, hold on. Did I see you post on Twitter you were at the Bucks game last week?
I was at the Bucks game, yeah.
Good shit.
You didn't seem happy about it because of something that happened. I saw that.
I was angry. I'm not buying another Bucks ticket for the rest of the season.
Was he pissed off? I didn't see that.
I saw
a picture of this kid.
Yeah, bro, I show up. Listen, so my daughter's been to like 9 or 10 sporting events now. Like, she's only 10 months old, right? We show up, we go to ADA, and like I've been to that stadium before. Like I worked the bowl game, so it's a little different, but I brought my wife through ADA. Like I go in with them, you know? And we get in this time, they won't even let us in. They're like, she needs a ticket. Mind you, it's a sold out game. I'm like, she needs a ticket? Where the hell am I getting a ticket from? Like, they literally look at me and say, go on StubHub and buy one. I was like, for my 10-month-old daughter who's not going to sit in a seat, not even going to watch the game? Like, what do you think she's going to do? I go to the ticket box office and everything, bro. Make a big deal. I buy a ticket. The ticket never comes. I end up talking to like one of the managers, and she was like, "Oh my god, that's ridiculous. Just go on in." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
Yeah,
so like, we're trying to get like a refund on that ticket because we never use it. We never actually even received the ticket.
That's crazy. I didn't see that tweet. I just saw a picture of you at the stadium. That's all I saw.
The game was good though. It was hot, really hot, but it was really cool to like to win, right? To win, but to play well. It
was dominant.
There weren't any like super stressful moments in it.
So you're going to be at this one. Are you going to be in attendance for Billy Napier's last game as coach?
I will be yes, and I'm going to be betting on UCF as well. This isn't okay, so in the offseason when I did my team breakdown, I had their talent rating way lower than a lot of people. And I think people were kind of fooled in like the first couple of games, especially against Samford, right? Like you're playing at Samford. You can't put much stock in that. And it led the Gators to false sense of hope. I knew they were going to be bad in the secondary. Like that was given to me. I had no idea their run D would be this bad. Like this is like historically bad for a Gators organization, a Gators program. The 107th in defensive success rate against the run, but to make it worse, they're 99th in EPA per rush, which like basically that means both ways they're being successful, but they're also getting quality out of it. So both major metrics in projecting run defense are negative for Florida against a primarily run defense. I think I'm going to run a sheet attack. I think you really have to consider it's a high number, right? I know a lot of people get kind of squeamish when you talk about running backs at the 100+ numbers. I think you really have to consider RJ Harvey over 113 rushing yards.
Wow.
So let's talk about RJ Harvey. He's cleared this number in every single game, except obviously the Colorado game when they were down by 20+ points early. In those games, TCU 180, the team we just talked about, Sam Houston, 180. 126 against UNH, 142. And what's great about it is, yes, he's getting a ton of volume. That's always fantastic. But it makes it even better that he's breaking off those really big runs. The chunk runs help get you to those big numbers. I think it's a number you have to consider. Whether you even just put half a unit on, I think he's going to have one of those big 150-yard rushing days.
So RJ Harvey over 113.5 rush yards. He certainly gets the volume.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm UCF, the game plan's pretty clear. Come in here and run the ball. So I get it. Scoop, are you down to take Florida?
I'm not down to take anyone. I'm on the under.
What?
Yeah, UCF. Listen, UCF was a disappointment last week. Credit to Coach Prime, Colorado. Their offense was clicking. Still a bit one-dimensional, I think. I think. Let me talk about Colorado real quick. I think the offensive line, they can get a run game going for the most part, but UCF couldn't get any pressure on Shador, and they also let a pretty poor Colorado defensive line get through to KJ Jefferson. I'm not a fan of KJ Jefferson, like Andy, at all. The issue is if the run game's not working, it's going to be hard for them to compete. And it was crazy that game because UCF's run game is one of the best in the nation. They just couldn't get going much at all. And they also had to throw the ball, and that's just an absolute disaster with KJ Jefferson throwing the ball, especially in the second half because their defense wasn't stopping anyone. In this game, it's going to be two great offenses against two poor defenses, but Florida's back home here. They're 1-2 on the season. Their only one win in the swamp was against Samford. And Mertz played great last game against Mississippi State. Again, it's Mississippi State. Everyone can put up a lot of points against Mississippi State. I like the under. UCS has a great run defense, so they're going to shut that down. Florida barely has one anyway. And I'm sorry, one game of Mertz throwing the ball doesn't make me believe in any kind of ability that he has. And though Florida's been pretty poor defensively, UCF's going to run most of this game and keep the clock moving. KJ Jefferson's not letting it up in Florida and Gainesville. I'm sorry. It should be a fun one. I guess I would lean UCF too, with Lord Bill T and Andy, but I think this is going to be a lower score than people think.
So I am on my own island in every single way possible here. If Graham Mertz is going to be the starting quarterback, and that's the big if here, because they're rotating quarterbacks, and some people are saying that there's a possibility that they told Napier, like, we want to see Lagway out there. We're looking at the future. Maybe there's truth to that. I don't know. But if Graham Mertz plays and is the starting quarterback, I think they hang 40 on the UCF defense. I don't think this UCF defense is good at all. Certainly not away from the bounce house in the swamp. Graham Mertz and that Florida offense can score points. Yes, they keep finding themselves in holes, and it's looked ugly. And then they tried Lagway out, and that was just a failure. I still don't even really understand that. Maybe if Graham Mertz was hurt, or maybe if the season was over, but they were trying Lagway out like super early. There's a 12-team playoff. A loss to Miami doesn't end anything for you. I didn't really understand that decision making, but again, I'm not in there. Maybe there was something to that. Maybe the AD's office made the call. I don't know. But Graham Mertz could score points, and UCF has a bad pass defense. So not only do I think Florida would be the play, but I also think it goes over 61.5. I think Florida could put up a bunch of points. The problem is if Florida is in punt mode and they're just using Lagway, then I can't play them. So that's why I currently don't have a bet on the game. But that's where I want to be. Everyone's going to be fading Billy. I'd like to give Billy Napier one last chance here. I think Florida puts up a big number on the scoreboard if Graham Mertz plays. But if it's Lagway, I want nothing to do with this.
I want to say something that I thought was pretty interesting about your bet. Earlier in the week, both the team totals were plus money for the over. And they both were like, I think it was over 31.5 for Florida and over 31.5 for UCF and over 30.5 for Florida. I thought that was pretty interesting earlier in the week. Now it's 29.5 for UCF and 30.5 for Florida. Both are juiced. But I agree. I actually think this has every chance to be fireworks. Even like the bowl games that these guys played against each other, they're like fireworks. Now the defenses are way worse for both sides. Like, I think it could be fun.
Yeah, I think the UCF defense, especially against the pass, is bad. So we'll see. If Lagway's out there, I don't have much faith. But if Graham Mertz is going to be the quarterback and take all the snaps in this game, Florida's going to put up a big number, in my opinion. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Miami Cal. I know that a lot of people, and I'm very interested to hear what these guys have to say. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, "Hey, Miami coming off the heart or the nail biter, right? Coming off the miracle win or the almost miracle loss, I guess is how we should phrase it. This is a spot to fade them." I think they're about to beat the shit out of Cal personally, but I want to hear what these guys have to say first. Anyone?
Yeah, I'm one of those people. Last week I thought Miami was going to destroy Virginia Tech in a double-digit spread. They only beat them by 4 and almost lost with that Hail Mary. I mean, Cal had an extra week for this one. They're home. They looked pretty bad against Florida State, but they did outgain them by 130 yards. They had a pick. They missed 2 field goals, won that game, or at least covered. I'm going to take Cal. I mean, to start the season, I didn't think there would be much of anything, but they've actually been awesome. They're 30th in defensive rating this year. They're a middle-of-the-road offensive team, but I think they can really get the ground game working, especially in between the tackles. Mendoza's fine. He's capable of making a good throw or two. He's obviously not close to Cam Ward's ability, but, I mean, Cam Ward did throw 2 picks last week, and Cal leads the nation in interceptions with 10, and that's with the week off. So Miami's traveling across country. It's a night game, so it's going to be like 11 o'clock their time. I think this is going to be too many points for an opportunistic Cal team. I don't think Cal wins, but I like the 10.5. I like them seeing it close. I like it just being a close throughout the whole game.
Andy?
I actually I lean Miami here minus the 10.5.
There you go.
And it's the cross country travel you want to talk about that that makes total sense. I just think that this Miami team is just so talented in terms of offense, right? Like when I look at I break this down, you look at net points per drive, right? Net points per drive on defense 17th. That's Cal, right? It means they don't allow a ton of points per drive. But then you look at who they played, right? UC Davis. They played against Peyton Thorne, San Diego State, DJU. Those are skewed numbers. Now they're playing against a team who is number 4 in offensive success rate to the dropback, number 4 in EPA per dropback. I think their net points number is like 3rd in the nation, which is absolutely insane. And it's not just, small little dinks and dunks that they're getting away with. It's not like they're hanging their hats on these big, long runs. These are big time throws. Cam Ward has an ADOT of 9.6 with a 77.5 adjusted completion percentage. These are big throws that he's making. I actually am taking Cam Ward over 296 passing yards. He's gone over 300 in every single game, and they don't run the ball. I think I came on this show and I talked about Damian Martinez, and I got lucky. I could say I got lucky cashing that bet, because even in that game where they're playing against a team who was arguably worse against the run than they were the pass, they still threw the ball. And I don't know if Cal's going to be able to keep up with that. And they're not going to let off the gas. Like, that's just something Miami's not going to do, because to them, I think putting a game away through the air is just as effective as putting it away on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I have the same note written down. Cal hasn't seen a single passing attack, not even a decent one. The best passing attack they've seen, like, when you were reading it, I was like, yup. The best passing attack they've seen might be DJU or Peyton Thorne. It's terrible. They haven't seen a single passing attack, and now they're going to see the passing attack.
Peyton Thorne lit it up against Oklahoma last week.
I mean, what is in the biggest games? I think Peyton Thorne now has like 11 or 12 interceptions in their 3 biggest games. But yeah. Now they're going to see arguably the most dangerous passing attack in all of college football. I was on Virginia Tech last week, so obviously I was rooting against Miami. But as I was watching it, I was like, this offense is really, really explosive, man. Big plays left and right. Cam Ward made a couple of mistakes that kept us in the game. It was very – look, I was on Virginia Tech. We cashed the bet. We covered easily. But when I was watching that game, it was very clear how much better Miami was than Virginia Tech. They're very, very good. And Cal hasn't seen a single passing attack. Also, what's going on with Ott? They can't run the ball.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, they can't run the ball at all. I thought Ott was going to have a massive season. His line's pretty high, too. I think it's 76.5.
Yeah. He's having a very similar season to Ollie Gordon. They just can't get it going. That was part of my reasoning here is if you would have told me coming in, like at the beginning of the year, you would have said Miami gave up 6.5 yards per carry to Virginia Tech. Now they're going on the road to Cal. I would have told you, oh, they're going to get ran all over. Well, there's two reasons why that's not going to happen. A, the 6.4 yards per carry, a lot of that was Kyron Drones, right? He was running all over the place. He was doing a great job. Mendoza doesn't do that. He's not going to do it like that. And Jay Knott's been nowhere to be found. So honestly, I don't see much from this Cal offense. The only time they had a good game throwing the ball was against Florida State, who's a train wreck right now. And now you have the Heisman front runner right now coming in your first not your first ACC game, but your first big ACC game, right? Your first home game as an ACC team. And I think they're about to get punched in the face by Miami. I think it's going to be ugly. Cam Ward, they're pissed off that they played as poorly. I mean, they didn't, but their defense played as poorly as they did at home against Virginia Tech. That was just a bad game for them. Now they're coming in extra day of rest in terms of they played on Friday, so they had Saturday off. You have Cal coming off a bye after not really playing that well against Florida State, so that's still in their head. Yeah, I think this one could get very ugly. You
guys are 0-3. I'm sorry to hear that. I apologize.
Next game. And we actually me and Andy talked about this game, but Scoop wasn't on and Brad wasn't on. So you guys know that me and Andy, if you watched the show the other day, me and Andy like Nebraska. I think Brad's the only one on the panel that's even allowed to bet this legally because we're all in New Jersey. So we're not even allowed to bet this one. But me and Andy talked about it. I think the clock's about to strike midnight on the Cinderella story that is Rutgers. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I don't have a bet on this. But if I was to have a bet on this, I would hope it loses. I hope Rutgers gets the win. But let's be real. They were not the better team in that Washington game. If you watch that game, I mean, Washington averaged 7.8 yards per play in the game. I mean, Washington was doing whatever they wanted. Rutgers, every single bounce in the game went Rutgers' way. A drive-saving call, a drive-halting call. Every single thing that could have went Rutgers' way in that game went Rutgers' way, to the point where people in the Discord that had Washington was like, dude, I'm never betting on a game in New Jersey again. You guys are all crooked mafia people. Like, what's going on out here? And I was just responding with Godfather gifs. So it was for those of you that didn't watch that Rutgers-Washington game, the Rutgers was not the better team in that game. So now you got an undefeated Rutgers team going into Lincoln where I don't know if they're going to get away with doing that same shit they did. This Nebraska defensive front is really good. The pass rush is coming for Callie McManus. I don't know what he's going to be able to do. And Rutgers' run defense isn't good. So Nebraska, their run game's been a little disappointing. I don't know. I think Nebraska's going to score on mostly every possession here. This should be a comfortable win, in my opinion. Hope I'm wrong.
I'm on Rutgers plus 7.5. For me, there's a couple things that come into play here. First, number one. Weather. It's going to be very, very windy. Wind gusts 25 miles per hour. I think that plays into the hands of a team like Rutgers, right? There's a massive advantage in having Raiola, right? But if the wind neutralizes that takes away some of that advantage. The running back for Rutgers, Monaghan, is a good, strong back that he can kind of replace that not being able to throw the ball. And defensively, I actually think both teams are eerily similar. Neither are super great, and I think a lot are more hyped up than they actually really are. But I think this is close, right? Any game that I think they're probably it's gonna be a struggle to see this game have 31 points in it, 35 points in it with the weather. So anytime I get a really close, grinded out game, getting more than a touchdown is just an auto bet for me. So I think it's going to be close. Rutgers' run defense is going to have to kind of put up or shut up. But when you can just stack the box, it makes life a little bit easier.
I hope you're right. I'm actually glad to hear you on it. And I didn't know that about the weather. You're right. because Nebraska, that's something that surprised me about Nebraska's offense this year. I thought Matt Rule was going to hand the ball off to those running backs behind that offensive line, play conservative with his freshman quarterback, right? It's not really what we've seen. In fact, the offense has kind of been about Raiola so far. So, yeah, heavy win definitely helps Rutgers' case. And now Scoop is actually a Rutgers alumni, by the way. He's a real-life Scarlet Knight. So, are you siding with your alma mater here?
Yeah, I'm an alma mater, 4-year graduate. You know what it is. I'm on Nebraska. This is the first time we're 4-0 in like a decade and a half. It's a beautiful time to be alive. Yeah. This whole team's like predicated on rushing the ball with Monangai, who looked great. I mean, he's definitely the best player on the team, and their defense. I mean, the Greek freak back there really can't throw the ball much. Really, if they had a solid quarterback, this team would be in the upper tier of the Big Ten, I think. I just think it's a bad spot personally for them. Nebraska's coming off a really sloppy game against Purdue. They drove the ball okay until they got into field goal range, and in that first half, they had 3 missed field goals. 2 of them were blocked. I got to assume that's going to be fixed this game, and then they scored touchdowns on all 3 possessions in the second half. Matt Rule's a good coach. He gets pissed on the sidelines. You saw him take that unsportsmanlike penalty when he threw the headset, which was hilarious. But he makes adjustments, especially in mid-game. You can see they developed a run in the second half against Purdue, which is a huge help to Raiola. Rutgers' defense is good. It's just not good enough to stay in this game. Emmett Johnson has looked great and should be able to find gaps in the Rutgers defense, especially in the running game. Like you said, Rutgers' rushing defense isn't good right now. I think Rutgers can stay around early, but the more time this game goes on, and the issue is, which they haven't yet, if they're down, they're going to have to throw the ball, and I don't like that. So I'm going to take Nebraska and lay the 7.
Wow, the Scarlet Knight himself fades the Scarlet Knight.
Nebraska's going to win this game by 5 points, and it's going to be so gross. I already know. I've seen it.
If Rutgers covers, please let them win. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Fair.
All right. So real quick, someone in the comments, John Bender, told me that I should have my Quintana Cuervo in the freezer already. This is just an announcement to everyone. This is your last opportunity to hop on the Mets bandwagon. After tonight, when we go on to the NLDS, it will be too late. You will officially have to watch from the sidelines, but this is a one-time offer. Jump on the Mets bandwagon now, so then when we go into Philadelphia next series, you could be part of something special. So think it over. Take an hour, think it over. Maybe type in some Grimace highlights on YouTube. Just weigh your options out. You're going to want to be a part of this. So, Brad, thanks for joining. Make sure you guys give Brad a follow. That's his Twitter right on the screen there. But if you follow me, I tagged him in the tweet. So if you follow me on Twitter, you could just click right on his name there. He was here with us on Saturday as well, filling in for Scoop. Appreciate that. Scoop and Andy, I'll let you know what we're doing tomorrow, but obviously Saturday morning we'll do the thing. We're going through all the games, same as always. You can make it Saturday.
We got 4 games tomorrow, right?
Oh yeah, duh. Yeah, we'll be on doing. There's 4 games on tomorrow,
3.5.
so we'll be on tomorrow and then Saturday.
True. Yeah.
Duh. That's what we're working on right now. We're doing a video for that. It slipped my mind. So yeah, let's go Mets, guys. See you all tomorrow. Everyone, be sure to bet respect.